Welcome back to the Media Club. It's been a long time coming, but Disney Plus has finally confirmed that it will end its role producing Doctor Who with the BBC. Rebecca, was this inevitable?
I don't know, inevitable, but certainly I think a lot of people have been saying it's not looking good. They're probably not going to. Like you say, it's been a while coming. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of time. Initially, they said they weren't going to say anything, or it was thought they wouldn't say anything until after the upcoming series, The Land Between the War and the Sea, which is kind of the spin-off series. But I think Disney have just this week said, no, we're not going to go ahead with it. And it was an initial contract for 26 episodes, which included the two series with Ncuti Gatwa, the Christmas specials, the kind of comeback special they did, and the War Between the Land and the Sea. And they've said, that's enough for us. Thanks very much.
I mean, it's tough for the BBC because Disney were ponying up a load of cash to make it work in the modern world, and also bring it to lots of people, to Disney Plus across the world. Leaves them in a bit of a hole.
Yes. I mean, it was a lot of money. I mean, they've never quite but there was speculation of like 8 to 10 million an episode, which, when you think about like how kind of traditionally shonky Doctor Who has been and sort of, BBC budgets traditionally, that is incredible. It's not ideal, obviously. It is, before Disney, what was happening? So Disney had the rights to distribute and to show Doctor Who on Disney Plus outside of the UK. BBC retained the UK rights because, of course, they did. It's their big flagship bit of IP. But Disney had the rights everywhere else. Now, what that did was that replaced a bunch of kind of patchwork rights. So I think it was ABC in Australia had the rights. Basically, different broadcasters around the world would pay for the rights to distribute it in their territory.
Who were all a bit annoyed when they lost it, weren't they?
Yes, yeah. And, and it would be, again, like it's a big piece of IP for a PSB, for any kind of broadcaster. So whether or not they'll go back to that, or whether there is another kind of, American company waiting in the wings that might want to take it back. I will say, like, as a big dorky fan of the show, and I'm a big fan of Bad Wolf, and so which is the production company that kind of took it on, and it's not known whether Bad Wolf will continue with the production separate from BBC Studios. I suspect they will, but I could be wrong. But, I really love Bad Wolf content. I do sort of think when you saw all that money on the screen, you could tell where it had gone, and actually perhaps some of the charm of the chunky sets was lost, the sort of slightly wobbly sets, the tinfoil, and maybe going back to, we can't show you the massive alien because we can't afford to, so everyone's going to wobble to one side and a big furry arm will come into the set and come out again. Like, maybe that, might help to just give it a little bit, traditional zing.
Ben, Doctor Who fan?
I'm not. I wish I was. I mean, there's many franchises that I wish I could get into, and sadly just haven't. I suppose it's interesting for me in the sense of, is it a case of? Sorry, I'll ask some questions now. But is it a case? Do you think that the kind of Britishness of it doesn't travel well enough, or the story was kind of weak because they placed the money in the wrong places, as you were just saying? I
don't know. They placed the money in the wrong places, but I think if you compare, just to clarify what I was saying before, I think if you compare, say, that budget, although it's huge for a BBC show, compare it to something like The Mandalorian. It's just, it's in this weird in-between where it's neither on a shoestring nor is it the big bangs and whistles that you're getting on The Mandalorian. So it was in a weird place. I think there was a combination of, because there is a fandom for Doctor Who in America, which I think Disney was hoping to tap into. There's been some discussion about whether or not it was heavily enough marketed in America, that some insiders are saying it was and some insiders are saying no, it really wasn't. So there's that. And it was quite British. It is a bonkers story. I think if you're not already into it and you weren't already going to be like a big fan of, so he's this guy with two hearts and he's lived lots of iterations and he just changes personality and person on the regular. And there's so much, it's bigger on the inside, all of that sort of stuff. Maybe that didn't translate. Maybe it didn't do the numbers perhaps that Disney would have liked.
In some ways you think like it's the ultimate reboot, because when there's a new Doctor, it sort of reboots itself.
Yeah.
But has it all got just a bit too complicated to deliver to any new audiences?
Possibly.
Does it need to just rest?
I think the first Ncuti Gatwa episode, there was a lot of, if you were a fan of the show, there was a lot of explanation going on that you were like, oh, I don't need this. And it's because it's for people in America who are just starting to watch it, just to be like, okay, let's just catch you up. Yeah, whether or not that worked, I couldn't say. And obviously Disney don't really share their numbers, so we don't know.
Is this a sort of the dance with the devil? Like, you can get into bed with an amazing distributor and content company like Disney, but if they do pull the rug, you're sort of left.
Yeah, I think it's just, in an age in which attention is so difficult to capture, people are trying to find, especially kind of the more premium offerings, trying to find a way to compete in the places of the BBC. We have this in unscripted, where it'll be like, can you get a co-producer on board so we can really up the budget on this so that we can compete with the likes of Netflix? And I think that kind of sense around the more money this has, the more chance we'll have people kind of get their eyeballs to it. I think there's an element of it which, means that maybe there's less awareness kind of the story, or to be more innovative in that sense, and more
you've got to work harder.
You get content that you can get a lot of money behind. And then kind of what are the consequences of that, which is, the kind of Disney content isn't exactly the same as what makes a show traditionally a BBC show, and the kind of beauty of a BBC show doesn't always chime necessarily with what Disney will be looking for. So I think that is the complication of an industry where there's less and less money. People are competing with one another, and a lot of that competition is around, can you get as much money for the show as you can, so that the premiumness kind of flies through.
Picking up on that funding point, it is worth pointing out as well, this deal was struck kind of at the end of that peak in 2022 when everything was great, there was money everywhere, it was going very well, and we're in a different world now, and I think that is probably part of the story as well, that was a big investment at a time when actually the investments are having to work harder now. It's
interesting for me because I suppose so much of my mentality is how do you do more with less, having come from a kind of digital world. So in my head I'm like, you look at the kind of budgets for, I don't work in scripted, but even kind of big unscripted shows. And you're like, okay, that doesn't feel sustainable anymore. So it's like, how do you make more with less? With a Doctor Who, is there a charm in trying to figure out new ways to do things, but with smaller budgets? Well,
the last bit that's sort of left to be released is The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is sort of a spin-off, standalone, few episodes. BBC have just announced that it's going to be on air in December here and on Disney Plus in 2026. Is it going to sort of really fall between all the stools because it's kind of at the end of all of this? Is it any good, do we think?
I mean, I hope so. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Bad Wolves content, and I did actually go and do a big profile of them down in Wales the other week, and it's on the broadcast website if anybody fancies reading it. I got to go in the TARDIS. I was trying so hard to be cool and professional, and I was in the TARDIS, and it was great. I hope it's good. I have a lot of faith in them. They are the company that did His Dark Materials, Discovery of Witches. They make Industry. They make some fantastic shows and some fantastic big scale fantasy shows. And part of the conversation I was having with them is, how do you make those big shows in the world where the co-pro market isn't looking so healthy? How do you try and keep that premium ambition alive without the premium money? I hope it's going to be good. They could do with it being good. I think the BBC could do with it being really good as well.
And also they need it to be good to try and entice someone to become, I guess, the next Doctor Who.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, time for an AI check-in. And a new report this week suggests around 9% of US news articles are at least partly AI generated. Ben, are you surprised by that figure, or is it just the direction we're going in? That's just what they could detect.
I think it's the direction we're going in. Yeah, I think these newsrooms are struggling big time in terms of finding ways to monetize and make. And journalism for years has been in peril in terms of how you make money from it. So I'm not surprised necessarily that they're using AI. It's worrying in many respects in the sense that obviously if there's anything that you want to be written by humans and kind of fact checked, it's news articles. But at the same time, I'm sure there's efficiencies they can make in struggling newsrooms, and AI can help.
Rebecca, it was interesting that local news publishers were more likely to use AI than national ones. Is that just about people and how many articles they've got to make?
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I mean, I'm not hugely familiar with the American local market in the same way, but I mean, here, the local market is struggling. It is not what it used to be, and I'm sure people have noticed that your local newspaper isn't covering those local democracy stories. They aren't doing the same stuff. And newsrooms are just absolutely gutted, and that used to be the training pipeline for getting people into nationals. It's really depressing. And I say this, with a great deal of self-interest. I have two skills. They're asking questions and they're writing things down. And I'd like to do that rather than have a robot do it while I go and take out the rubbish, right? And it's just there is a world, I think, in which, like you were saying, that there are economies. There is a world in which, like, this whole thing about we have to get so much clickbait out, we have to get so many articles out, because it used to be you had a newspaper at the end of the day, you had to fill it, get it out. Now it's we have have to be driving clicks to the website. And the way you do that is have stories after stories after stories after stories. And it means that journalists don't get time to go out and do the good old-fashioned shoe leather journalism. They are rewriting press releases. Now, there's a world in which you get AI to rewrite the press releases. You have a human to check them. And then the journalist can go out and do the investigations, the nuts and bolts, proper bread and butter journalism. You can go out and do that. I don't trust people who own newspapers to think, okay, we've got 3 reporters, let's free them up to do investigations and have AI. They'll go, oh, we've got 3 reporters we could sack 2 and just have 1 check the AI. Yeah. And that is so profoundly depressing, as you say, what we want humans writing news stories.
Yeah, that's the fundamental issue with it, I think, which is like, AI can do a lot of things. It can rewrite press releases. It can't go and sit in a local courtroom. It can't go and interview people on the street and understand what's happening. And as you said, that would be a great scenario.
Yeah.
Maybe you can build some profitability by having the AI write press releases, though if everybody's doing that, it's
just AI talking to AI. Yeah.
But I also highly doubt that you're going to have these leaders of news organizations saying, you know what, let's actually just use the money we're making there to do this.
Well, one thing they might get into is generative video AI, new software from Sora 2, this is from OpenAI, this is Sora 2, released at the end of September. I think we're going to play a bit of it now.
Sora 2 is also the state-of-the-art for motion, physics IQ, and body mechanics, marking a giant leap forward in realism.
Sora 2 there, and we've seen loads of it on social media as well. What's your take, Ben?
Oh, I mean, it's hard. It's very, obviously part of it is absolutely terrified. I'm terrified at the fact that AI can just generate videos better than I could create myself. I think
Can it already?
I mean, yes, definitely. Okay. I can't create a man riding a snowmobile in the middle of, the Arctic. But I think there's 2 ways to see it, which is either it's a fantastic tool. It's like the kind of new iteration of Photoshop or something. It's like a way that we can create content. And the things I'm excited about by it are like it kind of eliminates that barrier to entry. If you're an average Joe, you don't have a major studio behind you and you want to create an animation, you can now do that and your creativity can run wild. That's quite a nice concept. On the flip side, it kind of puts a lot of people's jobs out and it feels like it's a major transitional period of which, we stand on the precipice of kind of just radical change and we have no idea whatsoever is on the other side. I
mean, sort of within a year, the Will Smith eating spaghetti kind of mess has shifted into something that you can't really tell if it's real or not real. Yeah,
and I used to think, I work in kind of, documentary and everything we do is all about the raw, real human experience. And I still think that's an element of truth, it's important that you can be there, be here now. But the problem is that you can just create a false version of that. And, there's, Sora has that kind of version of TikTok, which is just absolutely insane, where you can place yourself in these fake TikTok videos. And it just looks completely realistic. And also, it does the thing that everyone's trying to do when you're creating, say, digital content, which is you're trying to create a moment that's never, ever been seen before, which is highly, highly difficult as a content producer to create those moments. Whereas on AI, you can create it in a matter of seconds. And so we're competing against something we can't win against, which is terrifying. So I think in my more optimistic times, I'm like, this is an opportunity to just be more creative. And in my lonely times where I'm sat crying in my room, it feels like all of our jobs are gone.
Rebecca, when I see a lot of the Sora 2 stuff kind of on TikTok, it's funny, it's a great place for gags. It's also a great place for creativity.
It is. I will say, the obvious gags I find great. There's also people will send me little cat videos and it'll just be like, oh, this funny little moment. And then when you realise that it didn't actually happen, the cat didn't actually turn and look at the baby and go, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. I don't know. I feel like something is a bit lost there because it was supposed to be about, isn't this funny, this thing actually happened, and it didn't. And of course, the more dangerous end is the disinformation, the misinformation. I'm sort of surprised
how little dis and misinformation there's been at a scale. I mean, maybe it's just there are lots of little bits of it and people that can't tell the difference. But I think there was always the worry that there would be, Trump has said this and then it goes viral. That sort of stuff has never really happened.
Well, there's an element of that's happened, which is, in the Israel and Gaza war, there's footage coming out that you don't know whether it's verifiable or not. I think on the kind of large scale of did a president say this, that's kind of reasonably easy to disprove. I think it is in places where you're not necessarily getting the news coverage, maybe in areas off limits, and you don't know what to make of the content.
And I think that point about it's not just the stuff that you see and you believe it to be real, but it's the stuff that you see and you go, I don't know if this is real.
I think the comment you see the most now on TikTok and Instagram is like, is this real?
Yeah.
Or is this AI? There's a lot of that.
It's also just great at kind of pulling at our heartstrings. So I think, if you are a kind of political, individual who's trying to use some master manipulation, you can now create an AI video that really feels viscerally real, that humans will react to.
And perhaps is micro-targeted in places that the mainstream don't see.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit in that position now where I'm just like, I don't think there's anything we can really do about it. We've crossed the Rubicon. So, I'm trying to get to a position where I'm like, it is a tool for creative use, and you just have to see it as that. And okay, it's going to take some jobs, but it'll also create jobs, and hope that it's like, is it a new revolution of kind of content and creativity? But it feels like this is a turning point in humanity that we have never seen. I'm
trying to think of there's a Douglas Adams quote about like anything that happens when you're a child or before you're born is like natural in the way of the world. Anything that happens in your teens, 20s, 30s is like exciting and new and the new frontier. And anything that happens after that is weird and unnatural and we've gone too far. Yeah. And I think even though I'm in my 30s, I might have hit my Douglas Adams point with it. I'm just like, I don't know about this. I don't know.
But I think that is a valid feeling. Even like, I've got a child who's very young, and you start to think, I'd like him to be a filmmaker, that'd be great, or I'd like him to do whatever, but you're like, what the hell does he now do in this space? Not just obviously in the film space, but in absolutely kind of every industry. And I don't think, even in the world of creativity, it's not just AI video, like every single aspect of it, like creating decks, responding to emails, like everything is now starts to become pretty generic. That's the one saving grace, is that ChatGPT is freaking generic. You know what I mean? Like if I try and say, if I'm like reversion my documentary into a fiction script and then I read it, it's the worst thing ever. You're kind of like, this is so terrible. Or if you're like, write me a comprehensive treatment on this story, which I've tried, it's terrible. So it's like, it's impossible. There's aspects of it that it just can't do yet.
There's hope for us next, at least for the next 6 months.
6 months. Yeah, we're all
right. Just before the break, 9 TV indies have been shortlisted for the bid to generate a new mega format for the BBC and NBCU. Rebecca, this is part of quite a long partnership the BBC have had with NBC, and things like The Weakest Link and Traitors and Destination X have been a part of that. What are they trying to get?
Essentially, they are trying to come up with brilliant entertainment shows that have the success of, obviously, The Traitors has been huge, Destination X a bit smaller, but, still, phenomenally successful. They're trying to find the next one of those. And I think there's a lot of the discussions at Edinburgh TV Festival were about who's buying international formats that have been made elsewhere. So, for example, The Traitors was an example of that. But, there's a big move, like we have a very creative, brilliant industry in England and in the UK. And we are trying really hard to come up with, indies are trying really hard to come up with ideas. And so there's a feeling that the broadcaster should be buying from Britain, and that's essentially what this is setting out to do.
I thought I saw a post, I think, from a development producer, and they were looking at how many people had kind of bid for this money, and he sort of worked out that it's probably about £1 million had been spent to actually get what the cash that comes the other way wouldn't get anywhere near that.
Yeah, it's about 10,000. The 6 shortlists, I believe, are getting £10,000 for development, and then there will be a contract to make the show at the other end. Yeah, I think there were at least 300 people on the briefing call that they did, and I understand there were about 200 submissions for it. So that's 200 indies trying to, or 200 ideas for shows. So yeah, there's a lot of, and that is a bit of a problem with development at the moment generally, that, the way in which sort of commissioning works is that, indies come up with ideas and they show them to commissioners and go, do you like them? And the commissioner goes, yeah, maybe. Have a think about it for a bit longer. And all of this money that they're spending, even to get it to the point of showing it to a commissioner, it's just throwing like stuff at a wall to see what sticks or to see what will go through a hole this big. If they just throw everything, something will go through. And that there are people in the industry going, is this a bit wasteful, or is this the best way we can be doing things?
Ben, a lot of the chat at the Edinburgh Festival was about basically going for big things. Like we're all now concentrating on big things that can then run internationally. Is that putting all your eggs in one basket, or actually do indies and small organisations just need a big show to pay for everything else?
I mean, I guess I suppose in terms of the development, endless pain of kind of pitching, and that is the bane of my life for sure. I'd say like effectively what you need as an indie is leverage. That leverage can obviously either come from a fantastic idea, which is great, but also even a fantastic idea doesn't necessarily give you leverage. It can come from prestige. You've made The Traitors before, you're Stephen Lambert or something. You've made like so much stuff that you're going to be called every second. Or what we're kind of putting our eggs in the basket of is like create the leverage through the audience and kind of testing IP on a smaller scale that can then kind of build from there. So I think it's a combination of both things. You need like as best as you can possibly get, as they always say, a returnable series that you can help fund the company. But I think the time where you can just rely solely on TV kind of companies or streamers to sustain your business is just dying. They're kind of consolidating, they're taking less risks, and so that kind of puts you in a position where you're effectively a producer for hire for the rest of your life, even if you own the IP on some of these ideas, and then you kind of have this yearly churn of trying to figure out what you do next, how you do this. So I think where the exciting elements of it lie are in the kind of creator economy, where it's can I create formats myself? Is there a way that I can create a production pipeline to make this content for a sustainable amount of money that can help me build an audience? There's risks associated with that big time, so I think it's a combination of doing both. At the moment we are firmly in both of those worlds. Well,
let's talk a bit more about that and what you've been doing after the break. Just before we go to that, were there any indies that we've seen have been shortlisted in this process, or don't we know yet?
Yes, so we do know there were 9 indies with 8 ideas, because 2 of them were partnered up. Okay. So it was Expectation, who are the guys that make Clarkson's Farm on Prime Video, have teamed up with Plegazoid. So Plegazoid is run by a guy called David Flynn, who has some pretty major entertainment shows sort of under his belt. I think he was involved in Pointless, actually. As well. Probably one of the most interesting ones is October Films, who normally make documentaries, and they're obviously going, actually, maybe we'll try our hands at this. And I think it is, like you were saying, that companies are having to diversify into the creator economy and out of pure TV. I think also they're kind of going, well, we can't just be specialists. Let's have a little, I don't know about October Films particularly, but I think probably a symptomatic of a market where people are thinking, well, maybe we should diversify what we're specialists in and try something new, try something different.
And so much it's like people driven. Like if you have someone who comes to work with you who's suddenly got some experience, then you've got the opportunity to look at different areas. Yeah,
you hire the person that made the ran the last show. Yeah. And there are some kind of companies on there that do have a lot of experience. You've got Bandicoot that make The Masked Singer. You've got Talkback Thames who made Britain's Got Talent. There's plenty of sort of TV royalty within that list. We've also got kind of Worker Bee, Primal Media, and Metal Mouse, Objective Entertainment. There's a lot of good things in there with a lot of shows. Yes, yeah.
Okay, when we return, Ben, on what's happening on YouTube.
Hello Media Club listeners, Patrick here from Podcast Discovery, the podcast marketing company, where this week we've been thinking about what to do between seasons. You've probably heard that with listeners' habits, always on is the best way to keep people's attention, but that's not always possible. So what's the best way to keep your feed and your socials active while you work on your next series? To find out what we think, head to podcastdiscovery.com. That's podcastdiscovery.com.
Podshop Studios, where we record every week, has just opened 4 brand new super stylish studios in Shoreditch. Each one has its own distinct look and feel. Today, if you're watching this, it's sort of kind of loose women vibes, I think, studio here. There's also a mid-century living room, a cosy library, or come and join us in this studio. They're all professionally designed and fully equipped for broadcast quality video recording. You can check them all out at podshoponline.co.uk. They're also offering Media Club listeners 25% off their first booking, so you can experience it yourself. Fair warning though, you might want to leave. The chairs are quite comfy, but to get 25% off, just go to podshoponline.co.uk. Welcome back. Here's some stories we've been talking about in the club this week. The Telegraph is sticking it to their potential new owners, publishing a photo of Redbird's chairman shaking hands with a member of China's Politburo. Is this enough to reopen the whole tortured sales process? Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy may hope not, but editor Chris Evans shows no sign of stopping digging the dirt. What next for Claudia Winkleman? Well, it seems a chat show is on the cards, with Deadline reporting she's been snapped up by Graham Graham Norton's company, So Television. Winkleman has stepped in for Norton on several occasions, but is she off to BBC One or somewhere else? And Spotify have updated their dusty old Apple TV app to let it play videos, something their main app has done for quite some time now. But it does signal something about the music streaming service's intentions. Links to all of our stories are available on our weekly Substack. Sign up now at themediaclub.com. Ben and Rebecca are still with you. You've launched a new channel on your Zandland YouTube channel called Human, which I think we've got a clip about. Let's take a look and listen.
The world has never felt more divided.
Powers that be, they'd like to call us a town.
What do they call it?
A problem.
Filled with people who don't want to understand each other.
Why do you have the beef?
I don't play with these people.
In this Zandland original series, we're doing the exact opposite. Trying to get to the bottom of why humans are the way we are.
My name is Ben Zand. I'm a documentary maker, taking you to places that you wouldn't usually get to go to.
Welcome to Human by Zandland.
So I'm sure you've seen that a few times. When I've looked on the YouTube channel, you're covering ists. Okay, so white supremacists, Zionists, and nudists.
Yeah,
that's what's there. That's what's there at the moment. Mm-hmm. What's the plan with Human?
It's got many kind of plans to it, I think. I think the initial aim from it, like setting up Zandland, the idea was that I wanted Zandland to be a kind of platform in and of itself, beyond just the kind of producer. And we kind of went through a few iterations. It was like, at first it was production company, and then it was studio, and now it's platform. That's the kind of idea. So I think, like as many people feel, the kind of world of TV and development system is extremely painful as a consequence of people desperate to get a kind of radically reducing pool of an audience. Often they are commissioning more and more predictable things many times. So the sense was like, there's a community of people. If we look globally specifically, if we're not like pitching into the US or into the UK, and we look on YouTube, there's a group of community of people who are interested in content that helps them understand the world. And also by making a series like this, it kind of puts Zandland, it's like the kind of window shop of Zandland. You can come see the type of content we make. And we have been making content like this. We launched kind of the Untold series for Channel 4. I worked with the BBC Video Innovation Lab and launched loads of formats there. So it was like, I've done this before, that content's done very well, let's kind of launch something ourselves and kind of figure out actually whether we can build that audience around it. And then the plan ultimately is to launch a load of shows with different creators. And they'll be in different spaces. It's like a food show, a tech show, all in the kind of Zandland universe, which is we go there, on the ground content. We show you places you don't usually get access to. All the while, the kind of rest of the business of we have the Zandland narrative side of the business, which is pitching to streamers and podcasts, and then branded content will still exist. But yeah, it's put our money where our mouth is and make some content.
I mean, Human looks like it could be on regular telly. It's sort of no different to what you'd see on BBC Two or Channel 4. Was that the intention, and is that how it worked, or did you have to fund it in a slightly more economic way?
Yeah, I think the unique advantage I have is that I've always done things. Like I was kind of one of the first people at the BBC that would like shoot, produce, edit, present. So I do like about 11 roles in one from the very, very beginning. And this was just always in my head of how kind of content was made. And there's now a kind of growing amount of people who come from more like the kind of creator universe, and they kind of sit in their bedrooms 20 hours a day making content because they love it. So like there's a lot of people who really care passionately about this type of content and don't feel like it's really being made elsewhere. But they're also great shooters and they can edit. So I think, the content, we can make content, that doesn't cost a huge amount of money. And the way we do that, in all honesty, is it's just less time on the ground. And the way the format is created is in a way that it feels deep. So it's a blend of actuality. So we spend about 1 to 2 days in places, and studio. So it's a bit like recording a podcast. It's not like we're going there and doing like a kind of Louis Theroux show that takes 6 weeks to make and we're having returning characters. You just accept that there's certain types of filmmaking you can't do. But what I realized is actually just that sense around going to a place, spending time with people, we can make quite affordably. And then the kind of, the economics of it are effectively, there's like a flywheel of kind of content you can have from that, and different ways you can make revenue. Obviously, AdSense, brand sponsorships, subscriptions. We have our first Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, so Patreon gets a slightly longer version of the material.
At the moment, they get behind the scenes content.
Okay.
That'll kind of what you call it, expand as time goes on. Live events, merchandise, and I think the idea of what we want to be is we want to be the factual hub for this type of content. We feel like there's people being massively underserved that type of content, so we want to be the house for different talent. My wife is a lady called Isabel Young who makes this type of content. We're doing a show with Stacey Dooley at the moment. We did the show with Uber Butler. So there's all these people who make amazing shows around and about and have an audience. And the thing is, like, on the YouTube space, there's a huge amount of people making factual content that if you just turned it up a notch, a little bit more compliance, a little bit more research into it, would be just TV shows that are absolutely fantastic.
And also YouTube have launched a new feature where you can kind of collaborate across YouTube channels. I mean, that must provide new opportunities for working with some of these creators to share platforms and audiences. Yeah,
and also collaborate with, we're talking to big networks at the moment about collaborating with them in exactly the same way by sharing those things. And it's been interesting, we've released 3 films. And this is where you can play some magic with the numbers. The kind of films plus the social clips have had, I think, 3.5 million views at this point. The films are getting about 50k each right now, which is which is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good for a start. Yeah, for a standing start. And then the social clips are getting millions of views. I think it's and what's fascinating is you see in the back end how the YouTube algorithm is responding to it. Also, how the majority of people are watching it on TV. And the kind of that sensibility of people are just consuming it as a TV show. And I think the thing that kind of struck me was twofold. One is everyone I'm talking to from the industry, even big companies are reaching out to me saying they're trying to set up a YouTube channel because they were making millions and they're now worried about their future because they're commissioned to try and go up. So you're on the one hand, the canary is out the coal mine. There is a problem over here. On the other hand, the average consumer does not care where the content comes from. They're not thinking, is this on the BBC? Is this on Channel 4? They're just thinking, I want to watch that content. So if you can find a way to make the content a way audiences can respond to and can find, discoverability is everything.
So with some of the initial films, what was more nerve-wracking, the episode in the Middle East or taking all your clothes off?
Definitely the nudist. I mean, the nudist film was because obviously they have to be quite quick shoots because we're not millionaires. So basically I was pretty freaking jet lagged. I hadn't worked with half of the crew before. I'm also the guy who runs the company, and I'm oh, hey guys, so I'm actually going to get my penis out.
I you refer to as Little Benji.
Is everyone okay with that? You can't get the back out right now. And also, I thought it would be a bit of a joke. It turns out it's actually really freaking nerve-wracking. I was not. That was terrifying.
I mean, there's a reason that's the archetypal nightmare, though, isn't it?
Because it's I'm quite I'll throw myself into anything, and I was honestly terrified. Yeah, and also you're kind of the whole, because also the jet lag just makes you weird anyway.
There was a really warm bunch of comments to that video, I guess, particularly from people from that community or people who are open for that community and felt like they were quite literally being seen that maybe they don't get normally. So that must be nice to get the instant feedback as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I think you have to kind of blend business with purpose in life. And I think I do think the world is at times pretty terrible at the moment, and I think our ability to understand each other and listen to each other is just radically diminishing. So it's kind of I just want to make content. I want to prove that you can make important factual content that is entertaining and doesn't screw people over, that is profitable. That's basically my mission. I'll happily go bankrupt doing it. Maybe I will. I don't think I will, but let's see. So that's the thing, is that's the drive.
And also a new podcast release. So episode 2 of your podcast with Stacey Dooley has just come out. What's it like joining the podcast community?
It's brilliant, yeah. And I think that is kind of demonstrates the benefit of something like Human in the sense of there's residual benefits of kind of being in the digital space, in the sense of how do you create a show that has those same values? That's kind of Human is trying to have reasonable, rational conversations and is informative, and Channel 4 wanted participation.
Yeah, so it's a Channel 4 commission. It sits on Channel 4's documentaries YouTube channel. What did they want from you?
They wanted a show that could help untangle the world. That's informed but informal. That's the premise of it. So I think and Stacey's a friend of mine, and I got married last year. She came to my wedding. A few months after that, Channel 4 kind of sent out, like kind of mentioned to me this might be something they were open to, so I kind of went away with the team and thought about it for a while. We actually chose the name Untangled then. We thought it was not going to, you never think of the actual name on the deck's going to be the actual name. And I think it's been fascinating, and it's our kind of first foray into the weekly podcast space. We've done podcast before, and it's great, also very tiring, it turns out, doing weekly podcasts.
Finding those times to record. It's complex when you're quite busy. Okay, thanks, Ben. Just enough time for the Audio Network Media Quiz. Let's see how much attention our guests have been paying to the media news this week. And the quiz is called Media Land, in honour of you being here. We heard a clip earlier from Human, Ben's new series. And what we've done is to channel that energy into a quiz format. 3 more media stories from the past 7 days, which I'll pitch as future instalments of Human. Ben, you can decide whether they're for you or maybe not. And once again, Alex at Audio Network has bravely taken the brief and created a playlist of music to score today's game. You'll buzz in with your name if you know the answer. So Rebecca, you'll say
Rebecca.
And Ben, you'll say
Ben.
Let's play Media Land. He fought for freedom, for the right to be left alone by a press that was out of control. But after a recent libel case is settled out of court, he is in danger of becoming the thing he despises most.
Rebecca.
Yes.
This is Steve Coogan lost a libel suit against him and his company Baby Cow about the film they made about the discovery of the skeleton of Richard I under the car park in Leicester. So they made this film, The Lost King, and he played a colleague of the woman who sort of led the investigation at the University of Leicester, and he played the part, which would have been fine, but then he also wrote it and owned one of the co-production companies, and essentially they made this academic out to be kind of this fusty, patronising, sexist kind of man who stands in our heroine's way. And how true that is, well, a court said no, that probably isn't what happened, actually. So you have to pay him money for making him look bad. And obviously, as you mentioned, Steve Coogan was at the kind of the centre of the hacked off movement, sort of after the phone hacking and the Murdoch press. And he's made dramas, sort of dramatising elements of the big inquiries that happened after that. So it's been an interesting one.
Bittersweet.
It's been some slightly snide responses on social media, which I kind of think, I think phone hacking wasn't great, guys. They really shouldn't have been doing it. So, but yes, he's obviously fallen foul of libel, which, some of the laws that he was involved in some of the issues that he was involved in protesting against were falling foul of libel laws as well.
Ben, good doc in that story, do you think?
The way we do that story is that you'd have to because the whole thing around Human is you want to see life happening on camera, you want to see change happening on camera. So we'd need to be with Steve Coogan as he's going through the libel case. So if he was happy to do that, see the highs and lows, and I could spend a few days with him, then for sure.
We'll just recreate an AI, it'd be fine. It'd be fine. Okay, number 2. It was the biggest hoax of the 1990s, but is one production company in pursuit of the truth about to be hoaxed again?
Ben, is this Mindhouse's Alien?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is Louis Theroux's Mindhouse Productions is being sued by the director of Alien Autopsy, the movie, claiming copyright infringement. Mindhouse are working with the film's original producer on a project for Sky. Thorny one, Rebecca.
Yes. So it seems to be, so he was working with the producer on this documentary about this kind of fake autopsy documentary that came out in 1995. And the director, I believe, has got involved and said, it's not quite clear what the legal concerns are. There seems to be some idea of like copyright theft or, it's not quite clear what the issue is, but the director's taking them to court over it.
Ben, a legal issues a worry when you're putting these things together, or people have bought you ideas? Do you worry about what's the background of that, and when it comes to you?
I'd say they're increasingly a worry because it's so competitive to try and get these stories. If you're trying to pitch a true crime story or a limited series to kind of one of these big streamers, there'll be about 500 other companies trying to do the same thing, and everyone will own an aspect of the story, or someone might have life rights to this character or that character. So yeah, they're increasingly complicated.
Okay, one more to go. A media storm is brewing. A podcast interview brings a backlash, prompting its high-profile sponsor to pull out.
Ben.
Can the host?
This is we covered this on our podcast actually on Spotify. You can listen to it. But this is Louis Theroux and Bob Villain.
So Louis Theroux again, his podcast sponsor British Airways paused their sponsorship after an interview with Bob Villain. He was the singer at the centre of that Glastonbury issue over the summer. You talk about it on the podcast, as people who make this content, so much of it is supported by sponsors now. Is it a worry that BA can wade into it, or are they just protecting their own brand?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I kind of spoke about this with Stacey on Untangled, and she made the kind of good point around, it's brands, I suppose, can choose where they place their money. I think what's worrying about it is as the industry changes, and as many people like to say, brands are becoming the new commissioners, that's part of the worry with it. I mean, the reality is places like Netflix or Disney will also have their own opinions on what should be on their platforms. And I think it's the value of public service broadcasters and like a kind of an ability to make content that wouldn't necessarily be allowed elsewhere. But yeah, when I saw this story, I had two responses, which is one, it's interesting that BA even chose to get involved at that point, because it kind of created a media storm in and of itself. I'd listened to
Why did anyone need to talk about it?
I had no idea that BA were even in like a sponsor on that. It was just like, so it's kind of confusing. And then you pull it back and you're like, I mean, if anyone's going to have that conversation, you'd want Louis Theroux to have that conversation. He can challenge people very adequately. So it's a bit of an unusual position to take, I think.
I mean, is it just bad media planning by BA?
But that was kind of my thought, is like, why would you, like, what were you expecting from a Louis Theroux interview or documentary? Like, if he'd been interviewing the Westboro Baptist Church, that is overtly political and controversial and likely to come out with statements that people are going to find hurtful. He's interviewed white supremacists before. Like,
did they just think
surprised?
It's a celebrity interview show and that they were going to be safe?
I mean, maybe, but that suggests they've never encountered Louis Theroux before, which is impressive at this point in the media landscape. I suspect they got complaints. And
yes, but is someone just panicking? Like, if we don't distance ourselves, we're going to get a load of social media backlash. Is it trying to try and get out of it before you're cancelled?
Yeah, and maybe they've had complaints. Somebody's phoned them and directly rather than publicly.
But who doesn't get complaints for anything?
Yeah.
I thought that was the most intriguing aspect of it, which it felt like bad kind of PR, bad managing of their kind of public relations in that sense. And and obviously as a guy who runs an independent media company that's making its own content, you're like, you look at that and you think, okay, it's a difficult world to navigate, of course, because there's always going to be restrictions on from these brands.
Well, Ben, you've won the quiz. Congratulations! As a special prize, you get to pitch our ideas for your platform to everybody else, and then we can get 50% of the VIP.
That's great. That's a great deal.
Excellent.
Can I be on as a consultant?
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Cool.
You 33.
That's great.
Associate producer. Easy. Easy. Thank you to both of you for joining me today. Also, thank you to you for listening and watching. Remember, if you want to find out more about what we're doing on the Media Club, head to our Substack at themediaclub.com. And also thank you to Alex at Audio Network who scored today's quiz. If you want Alex to score your next production, head to audionetwork.com. Okay, before we go, how can people keep up with your good work, Rebecca?
You can find me on broadcastnow.co.uk. Like I said, I've got a big profile of Bad Wolf there at the moment. I'm also on, I'm not really using X anymore, to be honest, but Blue Sky as Rebecca Cooney, and Instagram as any name but Becky.
Good. Excellent. Ben?
And you can follow me at Benjamin Zand, and you can follow Zandland's work at Zandland and on the Zandland YouTube channel. And you can also listen to Untangled right now on Channel 4 and on Spotify.
Excellent. Thank you both. My name is Matt Deegan. The producer was Matt Hill. It was a Rethink audio production with visual support from Podcast Discovery. I'll see you next week.